Hello, fellow Movie Crusaders, and welcome to another episode of the Weekend Crusaders. My name's Sean Wasserkrug. Episode 10. With me through all 10 of those episodes and future episodes to come is Brian Michaels. Yeah, we are 10 episodes in now, and doesn't feel like 10, does it?
It really does. That means we've already talked about 50 movies on the show.
Well, by the end of this episode, we'll have 50 movies talked about.
And at least 10 of them were stinkers. So thanks for letting us watch those, folks, just for you.
Yes, just for you guys, the 15 people that watch these episodes. We appreciate you. Hopefully we'll grow more, and you guys will enjoy more of these movies. We already know that, talking a little bit down the road, there is one episode in August that Brian and I cannot wait to do. And we hope you guys stick around with us that long for that episode. But that is not today's episode. Today, we were talking about the movies that have come out between March 12th and March 14th. We've got 5 movies to start here to talk about today, like we do every episode. But today, we're going to start with our feature movie. This movie, it was one of those where I think I remember liking this more when I was a kid than rewatching this last night. And that is 1998's The Man in the Iron Mask. Man in the Iron Mask came out March 13th, 1998. Had a budget of $35 million. Had a weekend opening of $17.27 million, which was number 2 behind Titanic. It's good to know that Leo could have 2 movies back to back, like in the top 2. That was the 13th week of Titanic being at number 1, which is ridiculous. And had a finished box office of $182.96 million, $56.96 million domestic, and $126 million international. For this movie, to me, I know there's more than just these 2, but to me, there's like 2 quintessential, like Three Musketeers kind of films. There's this one, and then there's the Disney's one that you badmouth that I'm going to protect, and I think we probably will talk about that movie at some point this year, because I'm pretty sure I'm picking it when it comes out. But with Man in the Iron Mask, this is kind of like a older Three Musketeers kind of story. And no, we're not going to talk about the other Musketeers movie. That one awful. Was it Logan Lerman? Was it Logan Lerman? The Musketeers, or was it? I think it was. I don't think it was.
No, he was in one version of it. Yeah. I thought you were talking about there's a movie called The Musketeer, which is a whole different weird thing. But yeah.
Oh, the guy
Logan Lerman was in the other one, yeah.
Yeah. So it was like these 2, this and probably the Disney's Three Musketeers, are probably the best 2. But yeah, this one is, for the most part, like I said, it has all 4 of the Musketeers in it. D'Artagnan, Pathos. I'm gonna say the other 2 wrong because they both start with A's. Aramis, and was it Amos? Athos. I knew I was going to say that wrong. But the main story of this revolves around King Louis, played by Leonardo DiCaprio. He's basically a douchey, like King Joffrey type, but older. Basically, if Joffrey had not gotten killed off in season 3, this is probably... Yeah, he's honestly... Joffrey was worse. Joffrey would have effed King Louis after Game of Thrones, nonetheless. But then you find out that there's this prisoner in an iron mask, and you find out that it's actually Louis' twin brother, Philippe, and the Musketeers basically try to do a body swap to try and save Paris. Thus, that's the main plot of The Man in the Iron Mask. If I feel like I've given too much away, this movie is literally like 23 years old, so chill out.
And it's a book that's a couple hundred years old. So.
Exactly. This is not like something like, how dare you ruin that film? Watch the trailer. It gives everything away. But it's got a really solid cast. You got John Malkovich. You've got Jeremy Irons. You obviously got DiCaprio, but it's young DiCaprio before he really started to be a really good actor. This was like right after. I think this was his first right after Titanic, right?
That's the reason this was number 2. This came out 3 months after Titanic opened, and it was all because he was in it. That this thing was. It just had lucky release date.
And like we said, like Titanic was still number 1. And they're like, well, here's another Leo movie. Everyone's like, well, let's watch Leo in another thing with long hair, looking all posh and shit. Yeah. We also have Gabriel Byrne, Hugh Laurie from House. He's got a
very short role, but yeah, he's in there.
I forgot he was in this movie.
Okay, I don't think I knew who he was at the time it came out. Yeah.
Yeah, he was basically a nobody at this time. Yeah. And the only other real big name, you got Peter Sarsgaard. He's got a small part. And then say Porthos's name. I'm not going to say that right.
Gerard Depardieu?
Yeah. The only thing I remember him from is, oh God, what was that movie where it's like I'm going to find it. I literally only know him from one other film. And
it's the one with his daughter?
Yes,
My Father the Hero. Well, I did not remember it as being better. I remembered it being as boring as it was. So I knew it watching this. I went in knowing what to expect. But I mean, even when I originally saw it, I went in knowing that it's not going to be like an action epic. It is the Musketeers, but it's them kind of in their older, kind of retired years in this particular adventure that they're on. But yeah, I mean, it had a great cast as far as the Musketeers. Leo as King Louis, the first half hour is kind of painful to watch. He's not a good actor. He really sounds like a high school kid, like reciting dialogue in a play. It just really doesn't sound good at all. But then when he comes in as the twin, is it Philippe or Philip? I'm not sure. Philippe. He comes in as Philippe. I thought he did a really good job there. And even with that versus his Louis, the contrast, I thought the second half of the movie, he came across much better.
Well, Go ahead.
Just as far as the movie being boring, it basically when you find out about the twin, when they find the twin, and from there on is when it kind of really does start to finally pick up. And then, like you said, there is a little bit of action in the last act of the film. It's one of those films. It's not a bad film. It's just not particularly engaging. It's it's got good acting performances for the most part, but it's something that I probably would not have revisited if it weren't for the show.
The problem is that it's just kind of poorly paced.
Yeah.
It really is. It's like it takes an hour before we actually get to Philippe, and then kind of the whole plan of what they're doing. They basically have this whole side arc of Athos' son, which yes, it drives Malkovich's character through the film, but Malkovich's character kind of already was at odds with Louis beforehand. But and then you have the whole side arc with Christine, his son's daughter, or son's wife, or betrothed, basically. And it's just unless like a story. It's like, I guess it's supposed to add layers of how kind of slimy King Louis is, but it's like it took too much screen time. Mm-hmm. And so by the time we actually got to Philippe, which, like, I agree with you, definitely at this point in Leo's career, he knows how to play kind of like, not necessarily like the underdog, but like with Jack Dawson and Titanic, the character that is constantly looked down on, who's going to kind of be the hero by the end of the film. He didn't get that villainous kind of character yet, like when, as he did in the, later in his career with like Django and stuff, where he killed it. But this is a different kind of Leo. Leo went through some stages to get to that level where he is here. But I mean, I agree. Leo at the beginning is kind of rough to listen to, because I agree. They could have basically like green screened his hand off screen of reading like the dialogue as he's going through, kind of like high school kids reading Shakespeare.
Yeah.
It's kind of rough. Plus, I mean, for the first hour, you're basically watching the Musketeers just be like old farts. Like Porthos is like, oh, I'm gonna hang myself because I can't get a boner anymore, or stuff like that. And then
boner.
Yeah, boner. For anyone who knows WandaVision, you know the joke. But yeah, it's kind of. But once like there's an actual like, here's the story, here's the plot, it gets a lot better because the characters become a little more fleshed out because they have motivation, they have direction. Whereas like the first hour, it's just kind of, it really sucks.
I wonder how much of that is the source material, because a lot of those older novels, I mean, they were like this thick, and they always took a long time to get going and stuff. So I don't know if that's because of the source material, or if it's because I know it was the first, I believe, the directorial debut of Randall Wallace, who before this he'd like written Braveheart and some other things. This is the first movie he directed, so I don't know if it's more him or the material or what. But
yeah, I mean, it looks good. The movie looks good. It definitely doesn't look bad, and it's outside of I would say Leo and some of the lesser known actors, the performances aren't awful. They're just not great. Like Malkovich is just being Malkovich, but just in musketeer garb.
I liked it. Even Leo as Philippe, I thought did a good job.
Like I said, once you actually put him in a position where he's playing the underdog kind of character like Philippe, Leo starts to do really, really well. He just doesn't pull off the Louis because he's just whiny.
Well, that's just it. Even when he's like, what's funny is you talk about high school kids reading Shakespearean dialogue. He had done Romeo and Juliet 2 years before this, and I thought he did a really good job in that. And it seems to me that Leo, in this movie included, when he gets to show emotion, whether it be despair or anger or whatever, I think he's a really good actor. When he's just trying to be like just straight and normal, it just sounds like a high school kid.
There's two scenes in this movie, and it's him as Louis, where I'm like, there's Leo, and there's the scene in bed with Christine when she finds out what he did to her fiance, where he's just like, okay, I'm gonna just embrace the dickheadness of what I am, and then the part where he decide when in the third act when he captures Philippe, he was like, put your like it till you love it.
Yeah, when he actually gets to show emotion, he's good. Yeah,
it's like, but he's because he's playing the whole king thing. He's trying to be all straight up posh and not to show the emotion. He's just kind of like being evil through dialogue and not evil through performance. But when he gets that, kind of to just yell it out, it's whiny, but it works. And when Philippe, he's still reserved, but he just has so much more emotion in everything he says because of the character at that point. Like I said, it's definitely a better second half film than a first half film, which you can say that a lot about a lot of films. But this is definitely one where it's like you could probably skip the first hour in parts. Like, here's the basic information. This is what happened. Okay, now start it here at an hour, and then you go through the rest of the way. Like I said, because the rest of the performances, they're fine. I don't think Malkovich or Irons or even Byrne do anything truly great in this. I mean, the one performer, like, he really, I think his last scenes were really good. He plays like Byrne's number 2. I'm blanking on the guy's name. I looked him up because I was like, I don't recognize the actor. He looks familiar, but I didn't recognize him. But he's the one at the end when everything happens. He was like,
I don't know who that is. Sorry.
I grew up with him. Like, that's like, I was like, this guy's actually pretty good. They probably should have given him a little more to do in this movie, because like in the third act, I was like, he's got some good lines. He's got some good performance, some emotion, but he's just kind of the guy who just stands there for most of the film next to Leo. I feel like they could have given him a little bit more to do, but it's not his story. I get it, but like at the end in that final battle, I was like, this guy's actually kind of putting on the best performance out of everybody. Because I'm sorry, Byrne's final scene is not good. It's one of those. I think his screw it. His death scene ranks right up there in bad death scenes. Because just. It's just
I've seen worse, but it's not good.
I mean, I've seen worse, but in terms of I remember watching going, wow, that was bad. You couldn't have done another take of that. But but yeah, I mean, Man in the Iron Mask, I think most people who are Leo fans have seen this because it was, I think a lot of people saw this because it was the first time they saw Leo as a bad guy. And obviously 2 Leos, another thing. So for girls who are high on Romeo and
when this came out, I was working in a video store, and all we heard about for months was Leo. Anything with it, even for this movie, a poster of it or whatever, just sell out immediately. It was insane.
I didn't work at a Blockbuster at that time, and even at school, all I heard was Leo. That's why we all hated Leo until he did The Beach, where I was like, oh, Leo's actually not bad. He's actually kind of a badass a little.
I maintain he's still good in Titanic. It's just you got to separate the actual movie from the hype around him.
It wasn't that he was bad in Titanic. It was just everyone was like teen beat.
Oh, you did get sick of it. Oh, I absolutely got sick of it. Yeah.
Yeah, but no. Like rewatching Titanic recently, I was like, man, Leo actually is pretty good in this. I mean, he's not best actor material in the movie yet, but I mean, he still puts on a great performance, and then he follows it up with this, which, like I said, we both agree. As Philippe, he puts on a really good performance, and at the end, for Louis, he puts on a good performance. There were times at the end, though, like when the whole big, like, in the final moments where he tries to stab Philippe, and all they do is knock him on the ground, and they turn their back on him. Like, he can still stab you.
Yeah.
But it's like, he just sits there. Like, Louis, why aren't you doing anything? Like, come on. You could have finished him off like 10 times by now. But I digress. Man in the Iron Mask, it's... If you're a fan of the Musketeers, if you're a fan of these kinds of films, and you want a big name cast, because I would say for the 90s, this is a big name cast with Malkovich and Irons. I mean, even through this, half the time, I was like, every time I hear Irons, I just hear Scar. I hear Scar, and I hear whatever his character's name was in Die Hard and a Vengeance.
Simon Peter Gruber.
Thank you, Simon Gruber. Simon Says. But yeah, that's all I kept hearing every time he talked. All this movie did was just make me miss the Disney's Three Musketeers movie, because I like that one so much.
Which
more.
I didn't hate, but it's
every time I bring it up, you're like, ugh. Come on, don't hate on Three Musketeers. We will definitely be talking about that on that show when it comes up.
Yeah.
But Man the Iron Mask, is that on any? I don't think it is, because I had it on Prime to watch it.
Yeah, you can rent it anywhere, but it's not free anywhere right now.
If you guys are fans of Leo and if you guys have never seen it, and you guys want to see some Leo do basically two separate performances, check it out. If you guys have seen it, this is definitely not something I would probably say you need to go back and rewatch this or anything by any means. But it's I wouldn't say it's harmless, but it's fine, I guess, for what it is. It's just not going to like blow you away with performances or anything really great. It's not something you guys need to really go back and see. And that's the kind of the greatness of the show, is that we'll pick movies that we think really highly of, and then we watch them and we're like, oh wow, that wasn't as good as I remembered it was. This is not going to be a fun thing to talk about, but we still, I think, had a good enough amount to talk about with that movie. Going on to our next film, speaking of not knowing how well a good movie was until we see it again, we're going to go to my pick. I remember, once again, as a kid, this was always on TV at my house, and I remember liking it as a kid and watching it now. I didn't hate it, but I also was like, I don't love this movie as much as I remember I used to love it. And that is 1986 Michael Keaton's Gung Ho. Gung Ho came out March 14th, 1986, had a budget of $13 million, had a weekend opening of $7.17 million, which was number one in its opening weekend and the only week at number one, and finished with a box office of $36.6 million, as it did not go international. And there's probably a good reason why. But yeah, Gung Ho basically takes place in, did they ever say the state?
Pennsylvania.
Is it Pennsylvania? Okay. So Kurt Kowalski loves this movie. But yeah, it basically takes place in a small, like, was it Haynesville or like Hattonsville or something like that? Some small town, Pennsylvania, where literally the town rides on this car factory. Like this, without this factory, like the town will basically effectively go bankrupt. And they send Michael Keaton's character, which is Hunt Stevenson, or Hunter. They call him Hunter and Hunt. But they sent him over to Japan to basically try to get these Japan businessmen to basically come over to America, buy out the factory, and basically save their jobs and effectively their town. And they do, but obviously you have that blanking on the word. Brian, help me out here. The
culture clash.
Thank you. Culture clash between the way they do things in Japan and the way they do things in America, and chaos, comedic kind of chaos ensues. Not too overly funny, as I remember, but it's up to basically Michael Keaton's character and the main actor from the Japanese side, which is
Getty Watanabe.
Thank you. I was going to say Getty.
Getty. You might know him as from like 16 Candles.
Yeah. Oh my God, that is him, isn't it? Okay, I'm gonna post a picture of him from 16 Candles right now so you guys understand what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's really up to those two to kind of try to fix everything so that way they save the town, save the business, and la la la. Yeah, I remember as a kid. I think here's the thing: is like as a kid, I think I remember the last like 20 minutes when it's like playing the montage music of them working. Like I remember that fondly. I remember liking that probably because it was music and they're all dancing as they're working and stuff. But like the rest of the film is boring as well. It was just kind of like I remember this movie being funnier. I remember liking the performances a lot more. George was it Wint? Oh my god, I couldn't stand his character in this film. And I normally like the guy. He's from Cheers, right? It's Cheers. Yep. But yeah, oh my god, his performance is horrible. Like the only things I think I liked about this film, rewatching it, was like I said, the last 20 minutes, because that's what I remember fondly when I was a kid, and of course the baseball scene because sports,
which is like a minute and a half of the movie.
It's more. It's actually more like 5 minutes. They play a lot. They actually let that game play out quite a bit. But anyway, like the rest of the film is just kind of, you know. Like I think Mimi Rogers' character, who plays like Keaton's, are they married?
I think it's his wife.
Yeah, it's like I think they could have maybe given her a little more to do, because I actually didn't hate her performance in the film. That she just like disappears, you know, by the end of the film, and then it's like the rest of the cast is. I mean, I think the only other actor. I mean, you got John Turturro. I think this might have been the first movie I've ever seen John Turturro in. He's not bad, and I usually can't stand Turturro and a lot of his performances because he overacts everything. But the only other person I really recognized was is it Sab Shimono? I think it's Shep. He plays Saito. He's from he's actually in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3.
Oh, which, that's right.
Yeah, he's from that, and I've seen him in other things as well. But yeah, it's just the movie. I was kind of like bummed out when I watched it because I was just like, I remember liking this more than how I'm feeling right now. Brian, what were your thoughts on Gung Ho?
What I actually left out was Clint Howard, because it's a Ron Howard movie, so you know Clinton has to be in it, so he was in there too.
Yeah.
I was surprised to hear you say that you liked it a lot as a kid, because there's really, and I'll admit, I thought I remembered it being more of a comedy too. It's not a comedy. It's really a drama. It's got a few comedic lines and moments sprinkled throughout, but it's not really there's not even a whole scenes that I think that count as comedies really in the scene.
I think it's more or less because if you remember the last scene where they're doing the music montage, you got Michael Keaton dancing.
There's a little bit more to it than
you got the one Japanese guy taking off his shirt and dancing the whole way down the thing. Like it's fun. It's fun.
And then when he goes to drive the car away, yeah.
Exactly. And it's very comedic near the last half of the film.
And I'm sure that, I mean, I don't remember how it was marketed, but I bet the trailers were all, you know, pushing, hey, look at the zany comedy, and you go and see this, and like,
which is how I remembered it. I remembered it that way. That's not, you're right. That's not what this movie is at all.
But I mean, I mean, as a drama, I mean, it's not necessarily really a comedy, but that's not really anything against it. It's just not what we expected it to be.
It's a drama.
It's a dramedy, yeah. But it wasn't a bad movie. I found myself, you know what, this is going to be funny. I had a hard time getting invested in the film because the whole thing is, you know, how these Americans feel like the Japanese are coming over and they're trying to, you know, they don't know how American factories work and blah, blah, blah. Really, the Japanese were right almost the entire time in this movie.
Very much.
I mean, you're supposed to be rooting for these Americans, but they're the ones that, are completely ungrateful to this company that doesn't need to come into their town. They're coming in to save their town by bringing them, you know, 1,200 jobs. I think they said it was something like that in this factory, saving the entire town. The Americans are mad because they can't be lazy and come in late and leave early and smoke cigars on the job and do all these things. And it's like, the Japanese guys are right. Are we supposed to be rooting against them? Because I'm on their side. So I had a hard time rooting for the heroes of the show because of that.
It was more or less like the Americans were too lackadaisical and the Japanese were too uptight, and there just needed to be a happy medium. Which by the end of the film, it seems like they're going to have that. But
you can say that, but it's definitely more towards the Japanese side. And then even the whole main plot of the movie, it's like the Americans like make this deal, like, hey, if we do this, then we get to keep our jobs and get a raise and all this stuff. And they like basically don't make their goal, and they're going to be mad that, hey, we're not going to make it, but you're still going to give us stuff, right? And it's like, that's not what we said.
Yeah,
but anyway, that's all just to say it.
We get partial credit, right? kind of thing. And the whole point is, once again, is like, and that is like, I agree with you, is the Americans in this are kind of ungrateful. They complain.
They're pretty racist too, gotta say.
Totally racist in the film, which is probably why this was not released internationally.
Yeah, it's definitely a very, rah American story, and it was not. I mean, it wasn't like Breakfast at Tiffany's racist, but it was. There was definite times. I mean, now part of it was supposed to be the characters. The characters are supposed to, so they can learn to get along with them and stuff. But I mean, they come out things like, that's why we, beat you in World War II or whatever it was. And they drop lines like that.
They brought that up like at least 2 or 3 times in the film.
Yeah, and it was like,
Yeah, it has nothing to do with you being shitty at your job.
All this is just to say, I had a hard time kind of rooting for the heroes when they were kind of the more unlikable bunch. And
when Keaton actually trying to do good, like trying to like do his job, because he's one of those guys where it's like he's a manager and all of his friends are below him, and he's having to try to tell them, hey guys, I need you to actually like do your job. There are times like where, what was it, John Turturro's kid has like a surgery and he wants to go be there, and they're like, no, he has to work.
Yeah, there's valid moments like that. Yeah,
but it's like other times it's just like, no, like is it Clark? You said Clark Howard?
Clint Howard,
where he's smoking a cigar while working. It's like, you can't smoke while working, man. Like, come on. And then the other, there's just stuff like that where it's like Keaton's trying and y'all won't listen to him, and to the point where it's like, at this point, like yes, it effectively will bankrupt the town, but it's like, if I was Keaton, I'd be like, screw you guys. Y'all, like, if you guys don't want to work, like, there's that one point where it's like, I said George Wendt's character, like, I couldn't stand his character. Where he's like, I'm just gonna quit, and Keaton's like, and do what? Like, you've proven, like, for the last 5 months, we can't work without these people, And
you've just gone through half the movie telling us that there's no other jobs because the town's got to shut down if this factory doesn't work.
So you're gonna quit at the same pay to basically just sweep, and it's like, so you're gonna quit? It's like, no, you're not. Shut up. Just do your job. It was more frustrating watching this than anything else. Like, it was like, I always said, as a kid, I saw the last 20 minutes probably, and probably didn't watch the rest, the whole before that, because as a kid, you pay attention to half the stuff you're actually watching. And I was like, I remember the last like 20 minutes of the movie, and I was like, I enjoy this movie, which is what I remember, which is why I picked it. And like, as I'm watching, I was like, why did I pick this?
I mean, and again, it's not an awful movie. It's just not what I expected. First of all, be more of a drama. Michael Keaton definitely brings his usual charm to the role, though. I mean, I thought he was fine in it, but overall, I was just kind of like, I don't need to watch that again.
I agree, and we're not gonna tell. This is a weird weekend because we're not really telling people like, hey, go check this out.
But you can on HBO Max.
Yes, it is on HBO Max. Wow, why did I watch it on my old DVD when I could have watched it in HD on HBO? It wouldn't have made it. It doesn't matter. It wouldn't have made it
all better.
Yeah, it wouldn't have made it look any better. Except that Mimi Rogers is beautiful, but once again, she's not in the movie long enough. But yes, Gung Ho is on HBO Max. We're definitely not recommending you guys check it out unless you want to see some old school Michael Keaton. Because like I said, it's Michael Keaton. Everyone likes Michael Keaton. Let's go ahead and move on to Brian's pick. Now, I said last week this is a comedy that a lot of people love, and I was never really a huge fan of it personally, and that is 2010's She's Out of My League. She's Out of My League came out March 12th, 2010, had a budget of $20 million, had a weekend opening of $9.77 million, which was number 3 on the weekend, behind Alice in Wonderland in its second week. Yeah, we talked about that last week. And Green Zone, also in its first week, had a finished box office of $49.77 million, which was $32 million domestic and 76 million international. I am tongue-tied for some reason. Brian, this is your film. Go ahead and go over She's Out of My League for me.
Oh, She's Out of My League is basically about you have the main character played by Jay Baruchel. His name is Kirk. He basically works as at the airport as like a TSA guy, and he has a group of friends who kind of work there with him. So it's kind of got that buddy comedy thing going on. And then one day, this like amazingly hot chick played by Alice Eve, because she's an amazingly hot chick. She comes through and he meets her there. Basically, he ends up being asked out on a date with her, and starts his relationship, and he feels like he's not good enough for her. He's like, why would she be with me? And all his friends are like, why not? And so it kind of plays up. That kind of is basically the whole plot of the movie, is that his insecurities with how he doesn't feel he's good enough for her, which of course bothers her because she doesn't want to be the guy who's so, has so low self-esteem, things like that, and tries to hold her up on too high a pedestal. There's the competing ex-boyfriend, of course, who comes into it, who of course is like this, chiseled jaw, muscular guy with a great job who, intimidates Kirk. There's the requisite, meeting the parents scene with a whole new twist, which I thought made it quite entertaining. But basically that's essentially the plot of the movie. I thought it was great that first of all, Jay Baruchel got to star in this movie, because he's not obviously, a household name to most people, especially, 10 years ago. But he's the kind of guy who a lot of people you recognize from a lot of things, and I've actually liked him in almost everything he's done. But he's in this, but it's got a great supporting cast. T.J. Miller, who some people have problems with, but I think he is actually one of the best improv guys out there. I think he does a great job in this. He has this group of friends with and his brother and his ex-girlfriend's new boyfriend are played by two guys from a show we've already recommended, Perfect Couples.
Yeah.
Kyle Bornhammer and which one's the other guy? I forget his name. I'm not going to find it right now. Oh well.
Oh my god.
Anyway, there's
Hayes MacArthur.
That's right. Hayes MacArthur. Those two guys who are from a show, Perfect Couples, which you should go check out. But they kind of finish rounding out what is, I think, almost a perfect supporting cast. Kristen Ritter, I didn't mention her, is kind of Alice Eve's, BFF. Kristen Ritter, I think, is really funny in limited doses. I think in this movie is just the right dose of Kristen Ritter. When I get too much of her, she gets to be a little grating, but that's just me. But what were your thoughts on the movie?
I mean, here's my thing with She's Out of My League, and this is exactly the same thoughts I had the first time I saw She's Out of My League. Great supporting cast. I love T.J. Miller. I've met T.J. Miller personally. Great dude, super cool. I like him in most of the stuff he's done, especially in this. I think he's hilarious in this film. Another guy that you didn't mention, who I also think had the bulk of the best jokes in the movie, with next to T.J. Miller, was Mike Vogel. Mm-hmm. Both of those guys were in Cloverfield together. I think they're both great in this. I really like Mike Vogel. Lindsay Sloan, I think she does great in the little part that she plays the ex-girlfriend. I like you said, Kyle Bornhammer and Hayes MacArthur. I like both of them. The ex-boyfriend, Jeff Stoltz. I actually really like that actor. There's a TV show, had one season called Untitled, which was great. And it was one of those, it was kind of like Firefly. It was one of those shows that just got fucked over by Fox, and everyone liked it, but Fox wouldn't give it a shot. So they just buried it. He's great in that. He's one of those actors that kind of just shows up, and I think he's really solid in it. And of course, Deborah Jo Rupp. I mean, she's the best sitcom mom. I mean, with 70s Show and WandaVision. She shows up and you just love her.
Yeah, his parents are her and the father, and the guy from The Ref. He was one of the sons in The Ref, and he's really good. He plays the father.
But yeah, I mean, and Nate Torrance. He's fine. I don't love him, but he's okay. And then I agree, Kristen Ritter is great. Here's the problem I have with the movie. The cast is great, and when Jay Baruchel's Kirk is with them and they're just having their conversations, I love the movie. Because it's funny, because you trust you believe their friendship. You believe. That's
one of the things I actually wanted to mention about this. They were very believable as this group of friends, and this is an R-rated comedy, which I found very refreshing, because while it was R-rated, and certainly there are some sex jokes, things like that in the movie, but it didn't feel like they're trying, like it wasn't trying to be like American Pie kind of R-rated comedy. It was just it felt like a real group of friends, and I loved the relationship between them. I'm sorry, interrupted you.
No, you're right. Because there are times where they're having conversations, and here's the problem with the film for me is when it's not about Kirk not being attractive enough or hot enough to be with someone like Alice's Eve's character, I like the movie. I like when they are talking and buddy bullshit just about life, and it's not about Kirk not being attractive enough to be with Alice Eve's Molly's character. It's one of those things, like, I get it's the main fucking plot of this film, but it's like Shallow Hal. We get it. She's technically fat. He sees her as skinny. Fat joke, fat joke, fat joke. It gets tired and it gets boring. By halfway through the film, I was just like, I don't give a shit that he's not attractive enough to be with Molly. And like, beating a fucking dead horse. It's like, I don't care. It's like, and I agree, like, near the end of the film, he gets to that certain point. It's like, dude, just shut the F up and embrace what you've got at this moment, instead of keep beating the, like, I don't understand why she's with me. And
that's actually pretty good impression, I gotta say.
That's my Dave Burchell voice. And it's just like, there's literally at one point where he's about to have sex with her, and he fucking stops to have an argument about her being too perfect, and you just want to come in there and punch the dude in the face, going, what are you doing? And it's just like, it's one of those movies where it's like, we get it. We get the main plot. Can you grow past this main plot point? And to me, the movie never grows past it. You have a guy who, I get it, he's been shit on most of his life from his family and his ex-girlfriend and yada, yada, yada. And his friends, they love him, but they kind of fuck him over as well, because they're like, you're not good enough to be with her. Why are you with her? Why are you with her? And yeah, you have the ex-boyfriend, but the ex-boyfriend's actually not a jerk. He's actually kind of like, well, hey, treat her right. But, she does have this one weird thing. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but technically he wasn't wrong in a sense. Like, it really isn't a bad thing, but she thinks it is. And he even tells him at one point, don't call her perfect, which then he fucking goes and does. Like, the ex-boyfriend character actually was not a dick in this film. Like, he actually helps out Kirk once he finds out that Kirk's dating him, he's like, I'll help you out. And he's not trying to screw him over. Like, in any other comedy, he's like, oh, he's going to tell him something to try to F him over so he can get her back.
Even in the scene where he was telling her, I thought he was, like, trying to, like, set him up to fail. But it's like,
he's actually genuinely trying to help because he wants Molly to be happy. And he likes Kirk. Like, he thought he was gay, but he likes Kirk. But it's like, that's my problem with the film, is just like, you can have the main premise, but you got to build on that premise. And it wasn't. It was just the same joke.
I respectfully disagree. I thought it did very well. You kind of saw both characters, kind of came to terms with it. I thought that obviously the friendship, I think, was the strongest part of it. I will agree with that. But I thought the relationship between him and Molly, I thought was very well. But I think I
think that relationship would not have lasted. There's no like looking to the future going, I bet they're married with kids. No, they're not. It
just turns into an Adam Sandler movie, because he's always matched up with people way out of his league.
But I'm sorry, like, by the end of the film, I'm just like, I still don't buy these two. And it's not because he's Jay Baruchel and she's Alice Eve. That has nothing to do with it. His character, like his actual character traits compared to her character traits, yeah, they might last a year or two, but eventually she's going to move on to something better, because it's just the way they made his character in this film. Like, I don't see a happy ending going on with these two. Whereas, like, when we talk about Fools Rush In with Salma Hayek and Matthew Perry, I can see the relationship. I can see the future for those two characters. I can't see a future past like a year with these two characters, because they don't build on this character. Like, it's either going to be one of those things where Alice Eve's character, even though she's played too nice in this film to really ever do it, she's going to walk all over him just like Lindsay Sloan's character does. And he's going to accept it, and he's just going to take it. And we're back to square one. We're back to the beginning of the film again, where he's with someone who's more attractive than him, and she's going to basically ride him into the dirt because he doesn't stand up for himself, because he doesn't think he's worth it. And like I say, it's like they just don't build. To me, they don't build the character enough for me to actually give a shit about Jay Baruchel's character. But I do like his friends. I was actually more invested with T.J. Miller at the end of the film. Going, does he get the girl at the end? Does he get her? We don't know. We don't get it. We don't get to see that. And I was more invested in that because that was more.
Did he get his gravy fries? That's more important.
Yeah, his gravy fries. I was more invested with his character growth than Jay Baruchel's growth.
Yeah.
And it's fine. It's a fine comedy.
Well, first of all, he already did get his happy ending. He's got his happy ending before her parents showed up. But that's a whole other thing.
Did you notice the goof in this movie on that scene? Because I noticed it. So, okay, spoilers for this one scene. They're making out, and Alice Eve's Molly character gets on top of them. They're fully clothed, so it's not like it, but it's gonna start to do. All she's doing is kissing them and sitting on top of them.
Kind of grinding away, yeah.
Yeah, dry hump, and he gets too excited and he orgasms. And as soon as he orgasms, her parents knock on the door and comes in. And the whole joke is that he's trying to hide his stain. Which, dude, you're on a couch. Just grab a fucking pillow. And like you could have played it off, but
at one point he did. But then the father wanted him to stand up and shake his hand. He's like,
he just kept crossing his legs and stuff like that. He could have played it off, but then there's a dog there, and the dog goes to basically lick the stain on his pants, and that's where everything kind of goes crazy. But no, but the goof is if you watch real quick where the dog goes for the pants, they have dog food on Birdsall's pants. And that's what the dog food goes to lick, because it literally looks like puke. It's like it's like soft chew dog food. They actually put it on Birdsall's pants so the dog goes to it.
See, I don't think so. I think you see like a puddle of stuff that's soaked through.
I will show you. I will show you.
Put a picture up right now if it's true. If it's not,
that's gonna be hard to find a picture of. It really is. But I will after we're done.
Just a screen grab. I
will show you it. It's a goof to get the dog.
But anyway, but yeah, I mean, obviously, I enjoy the more than him. I really like Alice Eve, who I'm kind of sad that her career never really took off. I mean, she kind of showed up as in Star Trek Into Darkness, but she didn't.
TV shows. She's doing Power. She was in the first season of Power, and she's just doing shows.
See, I guess I don't keep up with TV much, so apparently she's gone there. But I guess her movie career didn't really take off the way I thought it would.
She was in the last season of Iron Fist.
Yeah,
never saw that. Well, just because you didn't see it doesn't mean.
Did anyone watch Iron Fist? I mean, come on.
I did. The season is way.
But yeah, he's not as big a fan of it as I think it's actually one of like the best comedies of the 2010s. I really enjoyed it myself, but that's just me. It is on Paramount Plus, CBS All Access, whatever you want to call it this week, but also on Pluto TV, which is one of those you can watch with ads.
Yeah, I even though I talk mad trash about it, I somehow had the DVD for this movie, and I get so annoyed because right on the DVD it says the funniest movie since Hangover. And I'm like,
first of all, it's a year later, so that's not really much of a thing.
It is on the DVD. It says the funniest comedy since The Hangover.
I call it funnier than Hangover, but that's just me.
It is not funnier than The Hangover, not even by a long shot. It is nowhere near as funny as
the problem, though, is Hangover has been tainted by this inferior sequels that have made me like the original less. That's the problem. But anyway, that's a whole other story.
I can separate them. Just like I can separate Zoolander being one of my favorite comedies of all time, and Zoolander 2 never happened. Just like Coming to America never happened. And you just pay attention to the original and pretend the sequel didn't come out last week. Anyway, going on to the next film is another comedy that is beloved by a lot of people that as a kid I didn't really care for. It is our revisited film, and it is the 1992 court comedy, I guess would be the term I would use, My Cousin Vinny. My Cousin Vinny came out March 13th, 1992, had a budget of $11 million, had a weekend opening of $7.4 million, which was second behind Wayne's World in its fifth week. Wow, that was number one for 5 weeks. And had a finished box office of $64.08 million, $52.9 million domestic, and $11.15 million international. Like I said, as a kid, I only really knew Pesci from Home Alone. That was my recollection of Joe Pesci, which I think most people my age or probably a little bit younger probably know Pesci from Home Alone. But when I saw this movie, I did not know the amazingness of Marissa Tomei at the time, because she's fantastic. But at the time, I didn't know who Marissa Tomei was, and all I knew about this movie was, oh, it's the Karate Kid guy in. He gets arrested and Joe Pesci shows up, and it's loud. It's a very loud movie. And as a kid, it didn't appeal to me. I didn't want to listen to it, and it wasn't funny. So that's why when Brian was like, let's do My Cousin Vinny, I'm like, ugh, I don't want to do My Cousin Vinny. But I'll hold off the rest of I'll hold off my current viewing of this. That was a 7-year-old Sean that thought of this movie. Brian, what are your thoughts on My Cousin Vinny?
My Cousin Vinny is one of those movies that really should have just kind of come and gone and been, it was okay and forgettable, because especially in the early 90s, they were pumping out this kind of comedy left and right. A lot of like those, you don't see that, because nowadays you see like really independent movies and big blockbusters, but in the early 90s, there's a ton of these mid-range budget movies, these comedies that just came out. And so this is one that should have come and gone like the rest of them, but it was actually just so refreshing and funny because really knew nothing about it going in. But it really, Joe Pesci, I will agree. I kind of didn't know him very well by that point. He's got movies dating back to like Raging Bull and stuff like that, but he hadn't really done a whole lot until this is kind of hitting him at the peak of his career because he did like 1990, he did Goodfellas and Home Alone. Then he went on to, I think he had parts in.
Home Alone 2 was the same year as this as well.
Yeah, Home Alone, and then Home Alone 2 was the same year as this, as was Lethal Weapon 3. Which it was a big breakthrough for him as well.
Wasn't 3 in 93?
There's 90. Maybe I might date wrong, but yeah, I think it was. I
think 93 was Lethal Weapon 3.
There was something else this year then. I'm mixing up it.
Go ahead.
No, Lethal Weapon. I'm sorry, Lethal Weapon 3. Yeah, I'm sorry. I said 2.
Yeah. No, you said 3. You said
Did I say 3?
Yeah, you said 3. I just said Lethal Weapon 3 came out in 93.
No, Lethal Weapon 3 came out in 92.
Oh, I thought it was 93.
Same years. But anyway, this is kind of at the peak of his career because he was hitting that. It was kind of the Leo Getz and the Lethal Weapon series. He just done Goodfellas. He just done Home Alone, and of course this one, which obviously was big for him. And then Marissa Tomei, this is kind of the peak of her career too, because she had done some things before this, and she's done some things since then. But this is kind of that early 90s Marissa Tomei. This is what kind of launched her into the.
She's done some things since then. She's freaking Aunt May, The Wrestler. Her career got bigger.
But I'm saying she has not been like the main star of a movie for a while now. I still love everything she does now, but I'm just saying that this was I think the peak of her career, which I hear the early 90s with this and some of the rom-coms and things she did. And she got rightfully, I think, nominated and won an Oscar. Because the supporting Oscars, they tend to kind of throw those a lot of times as bonus to the more popular films as opposed to the stuffier ones that win the Best Picture and Best Actor and Actress. So I thought she did a good job here. I think comedy roles can absolutely be worthy of Oscars. But really, it's one of those movies that it's kind of just a feel good comedy to it. Again, it's well cast, top to bottom, because even everything from Fred Gwynne as the judge to the competing attorney to all the townspeople that are like on the witness stand, things like that. I just think that they create such a convincing kind of the small town atmosphere that it's basically a fish out of water story. It's this New York couple stuck in this hick town, and kind of at the same time the legal drama is going on. You got that fish out of water story, and I think that it's just done very well. Even if it's familiar, it was a fun new take on it.
I mean, it's familiar now, but back in '92, it wasn't familiar. I don't think you have a lot of movies back then that were probably a lot like this film, but yeah.
Well, I think maybe just the year before this, they had Doc Hollywood, which is essentially the same movie.
Yeah, but
Doc Hollywood is basically Cars is basically animated Doc Hollywood. That's what it is. So
yes, oh my God, that totally is. Doc
Hollywood exactly it.
Cars.
It's exactly it.
God, you just broke my brain.
Because he's on his way somewhere else. He breaks down. And he ends up basically being sentenced to serve as the doctor instead of to fix the roads. Anyway,
the doctor. He's a race car driver. Holy crap, Brian! You just broke my brain on that. Anyway, My Cousin Vinny. Wow, you literally just like stopped me dead. So I don't know why I never thought of that before. Anyway, My Cousin Vinny. Yeah, rewatching it the second time. First off, we're going to talk about this on our last film. I hated the soundtrack of this movie. Because the first song, or not even the first song, but I think it's the first song that Pesci shows up in. Oh my, what I was watching it on. Oh my God, it was so loud and obnoxious. And I'm just like, turn this fucking music off. Like, this is so bad. Just bad song choices, basically, for this. Taking that out of the equation, I actually enjoyed it watching it now. I think Pesci did a great job. Marissa Tomei, like I actually did not know she won the Oscar until you just said that. because I didn't look at too much into it.
There was a whole controversy of people that thought she didn't deserve it. So they think that Jack Palance just read the last name on the teleprompter because she was last nominee listed instead of it's the whole conspiracy theory.
If that was the case, then they would have done the whole Moonlight thing where they would have come out going, no, this is who should have.
It's just one of those conspiracy theory things. But she absolutely deserved it. I think she was great in this movie.
Yeah, no, I think Tomei was great in this. I liked their banter back and forth as a couple. Their couple was talking about she's out of my league, Marissa Tomei with Joe Pesci, but they were
20 years younger than him. It was kind of a creepy relationship, yeah.
Yeah, but I believed their banter back and forth as a couple. Just the way they talk to each other every night, in whatever hotel room they're in. Which I'm sorry, every hotel in that town is like.
How many hotels does that town have? First of all, this is a small town.
But I think they go to like 4 different ones, but each one has some horrible early loud noise or whatever, and like the only time he could get good sleep was when he slept in jail because it reminded him of New York. Ralph Macchio doesn't get a whole lot to do, neither does Mitchell Whitfield, except kind of be whiny the entire time because I mean they're kids in this and they get arrested. But yeah, I agree. Was it Lane Smith? He plays the other lawyer. I like him from Son-in-Law with another 90s comedy that I think a lot of people really enjoy. And that's kind of what I got with this film. It's like when I think about, like I said, the 90s, like I said, they kept pumping out. Son-in-Law is one of them that's very fondly in my heart, with that. And he's in that. So when I saw him, I was like, oh, cool. He's in this movie, and it's one of those things where it's like, it's you see it now a lot of days because there's been so many court shows and court movies that have come out where it's like you have the lawyer who's completely out of his element, but he just is so smooth talking. I mean, hell, they built a whole TV series of Boston Legal out of that with James Spader, which he's fantastic in. But there's so many shows and movies like that where it's just a clever lawyer who can talk his way out of everything and win the case at the end of the day. And Pesci does a great job in it. And Marissa Tomei, especially at the end, I think that's what won her the Oscar. Was her court scene, because she kills that scene. But yeah, it's I would say by today's standards, it's probably a slow moving comedy, but I think the comedy works. I think everything that Pesci does in this film works. I love the running gag throughout the movie about him having to fight this dude for $200, and then when the initial thing happens, he just full of punch crossbody slams on the guy. That's great comedic. Like, I don't think enough people probably give it enough credit, but when he straight up punches and then basically just flails on the guy, I laughed so hard at that moment because it's Pesci. But yeah, I actually quite enjoyed this film. I wish I could go back and tell 7-year-old Sean, hey, this movie's you're actually gonna like this movie. You should watch this, because this is the first time I think I actually have watched this movie from beginning to end. Because I've always caught little parts, and every time it's on, I'm like, ugh, and I moved on. Whereas now, if I caught it on TV, I'd probably I'll watch it.
See, it doesn't surprise me because, I mean, like you kind of mentioned, it's not, you call it a slow-moving comedy. I don't think it's slow at all.
Just by today's standards, because it's always.
But I think that, especially if you were a kid watching this movie, I could see I'm not really enjoying this because it's not enough. It's not slapsticky. It's not kind of wacky humor. It's not constant jokes. It's just kind of a story that's got comedy to it. And I think that I'm glad you were able to revisit it now because you can appreciate it.
It kind of makes me wish that I felt the same way about Man in the Iron Mask, but that's not. But I mean, this is definitely one of those where it's like, if you guys have never seen, and let's put it this way, like I said, as a kid, I didn't want to watch it because Pesci was loud, and even Marissa Tomei is loud in this. But you know what? It's like he's loud in Home Alone, both of them. He's loud
in everything he's in. That's Joe Pesci's thing.
I think it was just more or less just because he was the lead in this, whereas in everything else he was supporting. So he was loud, but he wasn't the focal point. Whereas in this, he was the focal point of the loudness. And then you also had everything around him being loud as well. It's like, for a kid, I was just like, oh my God, I'm leaving the room kind of thing. But now, I mean, yeah, it was still loud. I'm just like, oh my God.
I know the one thing that bothered me about this movie, and this is such a little nitpick in it, but I think in part because they had him with Marissa Tomei and this creepy age difference, they wanted to make him look younger. You can totally tell they have his face stretched back, something under his wig or something. You can see the lines where they have his face pulled back to try and make him look younger, get rid of the wrinkles.
It's like in Mrs. Doubtfire when they're trying on the wig and they just pull him back.
Yeah, and they have that done through the whole movie. You can see it through the whole movie. It's very distracting. That's my only nitpick at the movie.
Yeah, but nonetheless, if anyone who's only knows like one I did as a kid who only knows Pesci for probably Goodfellas, Casino, The Lethal Weapons, and Home Alone, and you guys have never seen My Cousin Vinny, you should definitely check out My Cousin Vinny. If you want to see a young Oscar-winning performance from Marissa Tomei, then you should definitely check this out. Like I said, Pesci and Tomei definitely are the reason why this movie is so good. People who are fans of Cobra Kai, if you want to see young Machio, even though he doesn't really do a whole lot in the movie except for sit and look terrified because he's going to jail. But like, this is one of those things where it's like, as I was watching this movie, I was like, okay, 93, yes, a lot of today's stuff, like, has changed between now and 93. They have nothing to hold these two kids on.
92,
92, sorry. They have nothing to hold these two kids on. Like, so much BS. Like, gunpowder residue, security cameras, like, just everything that happens in this movie, like, they get arrested for. I'm like, you did zero police work. You just arrested these kids like, yeah, they did it. Let them fry. It's like, where's the due diligence of the legal?
Well, he did confess to the murder.
No.
I shot the clerk.
And he goes, "Oh, wait, no!" And like, then they just kind of like, I feel like they should have had a little bit more to that scene because immediately he was like, "Wait, what?" And they're like, "Yeah, no, you just admitted to it." It's like he admitted to it in the form of a question.
It's a comedy. You let it go.
Comedy, but it's like back then, I'm just like, did they not check him for gunpowder residue? Where's the gun? Where's this? Where's this? It's like all they had was these three eyewitnesses who clearly had no good eyewitness views of this. It was just like this court case is like thrown out like instantly, which it basically does by the end of the film. But it's like I would be suing everyone if I was Machio and them because of like how horrible the police work is. And it's not it's a small town in Alabama. Alabama or Arkansas? It's one of them.
I don't remember offhand.
It's one. I think it's Alabama. But it's like, oh my god, the police force in Alabama, atrocious because it's like ridiculous. But I digress. It's 1992. Things have changed. This movie wouldn't work today because this would get thrown out in 2 seconds flat. But yeah, My Cousin Vinny. It's on
Nothing.
On anything. No. But of all the movies we've talked about so far, this is the one I would recommend to watch. Obviously, Brian would recommend She's Out of My League. I would recommend My Cousin
I would
Vinny.
recommend this as well, though. Yeah.
Well, I know, but I'm talking about this is the first one today that I'm recommending where you would have recommended She's Out of My League. So 2 solid comedies on the show. But now we're going to the stinker. And this one is not as bad as last week's with Alice in Wonderland. I remember we were discussing this film. It was between this and it was between what was the other one we were discussing? Secret Window with Johnny Depp. And we were like, we just talked about Johnny Depp last week, and we were like, look,
he's already had 2 stinkers. Let's give him a break.
well, yeah, it was that, or it's like, do we want to talk about this movie where we probably will have fun watching it, have good jabs, or do we want to watch Secret Window where it's going to be boring? And we already had Man in the Iron Mask and Gung Ho, which were boring. We really want to watch that. So we chose not to go with Secret Window. We chose to go with this gem of a movie. And that is the 2008 MMA teen film, Never Back Down. Never Back Down came out March 14th, 2008. Had a budget of $20 million. Had a weekend opening of $8.6 million. Was number 3 behind Horton Hears a Who in its first week. And 10,000 BC in its second week. Had a finished box office of, we almost talked about 10,000 BC, but we chose not to. Finished box office of 41.6 million, had 24.85 million domestic and 16.77 million international. Now, I said I had seen this once while I was hanging out with friends at a friend's house. So it was one of those where it's like, it's on TV, but we're doing things. So I'm like, paying attention. I think we were playing cards while it was on. So I like half paid attention, half didn't. And Brian had never seen this, and Brian's like, "What is this movie?" And I go, "It's Fast and the Furious meets MMA." and Brian goes, "What?" I go, "Let me just show you the trailer." And he was like, "Okay, let's watch it." Yeah, it's actually, you know what, Brian? You take it away because you're the one who had never seen it before. So Brian,
I had never seen it. And I was familiar with it, the title, and I knew a couple of people that were in it, and I knew it was like about mixed martial arts. I didn't know that they were supposed to be in high school, which is, yeah, I think all the
they
time.
all look like they're in college.
Yeah, this is worse than like the old 90210 years. I mean, this is people that clearly, there's no reason it needs to be set in high school. They could have set this in the college, still would have been a believable story. But instead, they have these people like
100% no reason.
Yeah, instead, like these 26, 27-year-olds who look 26 and 27 years old in high school, but we'll get past that.
They could have passed off for 21. They could have passed for 21. 16, 17, 18 years old, not a chance.
Yeah, not even close, not even believable. But anyway, but I actually, in watching this, I was going into it thinking, okay, this is our stinker pick of the week, but what if I like it? I mean, because this is the kind of movie that I could see myself just enjoying, on some level.
Torque.
Just like guilty pleasure kind of movie. I mean, yeah, Torque, exactly. But I went in, and I think the closest thing I can describe it as is it's essentially Karate Kid with a Fast and Furious gloss put on it, because the story virtually identical.
For the most part.
Yeah, for the most part, including basically the sensei who doesn't want to use his fighting skills. There's even one scene where he comes in towards the end. We were waiting for him to just do his thing, but
he doesn't though, because this is not.
But he doesn't. But it's very much the Karate Kid, just kind of made extreme for the new generation, in various ways that we'll get into. The story itself of course, it's nothing new. It's highly predictable. I mean, I was predicting scenes right before they happen over and over and over again. So it is what it is. But I didn't hate it. I can't call it a good movie, but as far as like our stinkers, this is maybe the best one I've watched this year, at least one of the least offensive of the stinkers we've watched.
I would have to go back I would have to go back and relook at all of our stinkers.
Yeah, I'd have to look at the list to be sure, but I'd say based on at least the last few, it's.
Oh, absolutely.
You can enjoy it for it's predictable, it's over the top, it's cheesy as hell, but it's still enjoyable on some level. But before I go in any deeper, what are your general thoughts on it?
I think you and I are both basically in agreement is that this is not necessarily bad. It's just it's lazy. It's a lazy attempt to try and cash grab off of like you said, the Fast and Furious gloss. You have to have all these women in bikinis everywhere for just because it's Orlando. You have to have every kid's rich with an awesome looking car kind of thing. You have to have everyone look like supermodels. I don't think there's a single fat kid in like this entire film. I think everyone literally.
The fattest looking kid in the movie is Evan Peters, and
who's not fat.
He's not fat. He's just not like shredded like everybody else.
He's not in shape, but like he's considered looking like I'm literally trying to play the movie back in my head when they're at the party and when they're walking around school. Is there any really unattractive kids in this movie outside of Evan Peters?
Well, they don't get invited to the party.
No, I'm talking about even when they're at school.
Yeah.
In class and walking around. Like, I don't think there's necessarily a lot of really any unattractive people in this. So it's like over just gloss of making everything try to look as pretty. But the problem is, like I said, it's just lazy. It's lazy directing. You can tell that they really just like just here's the plot, just do it. Because you have Cam Gigadent.
I've never known how to pronounce that last name.
Gigadet. I'm gonna call him Gigadet. Which I even said to you. I go, oh look, it's like the was it like I said a poor man's Paul Walker or like Costco Paul Walker basically. He's not a good actor at all, and I think what's he been in? I've seen him in things.
He was in Twilight movies. He was in Burlesque. He was in Easy A.
Yeah. I mean, he's not a good actor, but neither is the lead, Sean Ferris. He's not good either. Then you got Amber Heard, who's, I guess, the least worst in this film. Honestly, this movie works because of say his first name because I'm going to say it wrong. Hansu.
Oh, Jaimin Hansu.
Jaimin Hansu, who's basically the Mr. Miyagi of the film. I'm sorry, Jaimin Hansu is great in everything.
Oh, he is.
He's fantastic in everything. And this dude really, I think they really tried to push him with Blood Diamond as like a lead, but Leo got all the credit for that film. This guy really needs to get more appreciation.
Yeah. He's in a lot of big movies, but he always has small parts. But I think that anytime he's in a movie, he does a great job. And including this one, I think that he actually brought a little bit of gravitas to the movie. I think that his scenes came across as, he gave his kind of cliched speeches, but I think he was effective. Yeah, there were a couple scenes.
It was like, he's killing this scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There were a couple scenes where they like focused on like him training, which had nothing to do with anything. If they had a storyline with him, it would make sense, but they seemed like extra scenes in there, which is odd because it seems like there's other scenes missing in the movie because, towards the end, we're going to spoil this movie too. I don't care.
Well, it's sneakers. We don't care about spoiling.
Yeah, we don't care about spoiling. So at the end, of course, the two main characters, the good guy and the bad guy, the protagonist and antagonist, they have their big fight, and of course the good guy kicks the other guy's ass. And then next thing you know, you show up to school the next day. We don't know when it is. A couple days later, I don't know. But the one guy's face is all busted up, and they see each other and they kind of smirk and give each other this little, hey, respect look.
Respect.
For no reason. Last we saw them, they hated each other. One kicked the other one's ass. Now, if there was a scene like right after the fight where like they,
like a mutual
talked it out and signed respect and whatever. But there was no scene like that. It was just so jarring. We're both like, "What the fuck just happened?"
Well, through the movie, because like Sean Ferris's character Jake, he's from Iowa. He's a football player, but he's got a really he's got anger issues. Like his father died from a drunk driving accident, which there's more story to that, which whatever kind of thing. But he fought a bunch of football players during the middle of a game, so he had this reputation. But apparently, in this high school in Orlando, Florida, it's Fight Club. You get away with everything. As long as it's Fight Club, you're allowed to fight. You're allowed to like basically break the law, do everything in this film. But anyway, he's coming in, and the Cam's character, Ryan McCarthy, looks at him as like, this is my new like rival. This is the guy. This is the guy I gotta beat to prove that I'm the best. And so they do this whole thing where he's like, they force Jake into fighting him at a party. And Jake, being like not trying to be like a bad guy, he's like, I'm not fighting you. Like I'm not about that life anymore. I'm trying to move on, blah, blah, blah. And they do everything they could do.
Multiple times he tries to leave.
To force him into a fight, and finally they bring up his dead dad and blah, blah, blah. But with Cam, it's all about like he needs to be the best. He needs to be the best fighter, which he beats the shit out of him, in that fight, because I'm sorry, Jake Tyler's got fiberglass legs throughout the film.
Well, for starters, he's got anger issues and apparently a hard punch, but he has no fighting training whatsoever, much less mixed martial arts training. And so it's like, of course he's going to get his ass kicked in the fight.
I mean, it'd be no different that if you and me fought each other. It's like, you might have a good punch. I have 14 plus years of training. You can try to punch me. I'm not gonna let you.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna counter, or I'm gonna kick you in the legs and drop you down, which is effectively what happens in this movie. Like they're fighting, and then like the Ryan character's like, cool, you can box, but can you do MMA? And kicks him, and he goes down like a tree. And throughout the film, all he's got to do is kick him in the leg, and the Jake character falls. And I'm just like, this dude's got the weakest legs I've ever seen. There's one point he gets kicked in the inner thigh, which I was telling Brian through this, like, kicking the inner thigh, it stings, but it's not the worst thing in the world.
Because it's all flesh there, yeah.
Yeah, because it's fat or muscle. And Jake's...
And it's one kick, not even a particularly hard kick, I didn't think.
No, he's down. It's just a straight kick. And he's acting like he got a fucking nut shot or shot in the leg, and he's over limping. After I'm like, dude, you are a pussy. It's like, there is no way you are that hurt. Calm down. Like, first off, your dick's not that big. It's not like he kicked you in the dick. And second off, it's the inner thigh. Even on the outer thigh, still, it's all meat. It's either muscle or it's fat. Yeah. It's going to sting, but it's not going to the point where you're like, limping like this. You can't walk. It was like, oh my God, just kick him in the leg.
But then it goes from that to all of a sudden he's like, of course, Evan Peters takes him to Jaimin Hansu, who's like, oh, he can train you. And of course, all of a sudden he's like, no, I don't want to be in the beginner's class. I want to skip to the advanced class. And next thing you know, he's like learning all this stuff. It's like,
gets his ass kicked.
Yeah, but apparently he just gets to automatically become like the best fighter in town. In a month later, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know how many times we were like, how much time has passed in this movie? Because I was like, maybe a month. And it's like, but apparently now he can fight the best fighter in Orlando in Ryan McCarthy. Why do I know that kid's full name? But it's like, because he got like a month's worth of training, now he can fight the best fighters. It's like, no, that's not how that works.
And even if it was 6 months later, if it was the beginning of the school year to the end of the school year, it's still.
I would give him more the benefit of the doubt if it was 6 months later. But
a guy who went from nothing to fighting the best in the city.
Yeah, and then he takes him out. And first off, he takes him out while wearing shoes. That's illegal. First off, he partially got knocked out.
They're also fighting on concrete at the time too, so it's.
But he's barefoot. But nonetheless, we're going too deep into the actual fight. But it's one of those things where it's like you have this story where basically these kids, it's kind of like Varsity Blues a little bit, where it's like they can get away with everything because there's literally like the Cam's character Ryan, he beats the living shit out of Evan Peters' character to the point where he has to go to the hospital and he's like he's gonna stay there for probably at least a few days. No, call the police. We can't call the police. No, they can't do anything. Yes, they fucking can. It's assault and battery. Like, I don't care. Like, Evan Peters, yes, he squared up with Cam, but it was supposed to be training. And then, like, everyone was even like, wow, dude, you stop hitting him because he's beating. Like, doesn't matter. If you've been trained, classically trained like this kid has, you are technically a lethal weapon. If you F a kid up like he did, you can be arrested. That's the whole plot of Con Air. He defended his wife and killed a dude in a fight where he didn't start it, but he finished it, and he goes to jail. This guy beats the ever-living crap out of Evan Peters at his house and then drops his body off at the main characters to try to entice him into the fight, and no one calls the cops. The main character jumps these four guys in the middle of an intersection in the street, assault and battery. While being videotaped, no arrests happen.
No.
Why? Because they're badasses in a movie, bro. It's as bad as Cobra Kai, which is the main problem with the last two seasons. Like, I like Cobra Kai, but all those kids should be arrested because they're constantly breaking the law. Like, spoiler alert to Cobra Kai from like 3 months ago in season finale. They break into their house and beat the shit out of these kids. No one gets arrested for that? Fuck you. Like, there's got to be a realm of realism in this. Like, and then there's bad clipping in this film. There's one where you paused it where they're at the party and they have the fight circle. And literally, like, it's just, Brian's like, I guarantee you this is like, are they just sitting here saying 2 words every 15 minutes? Because they're showing a different fight in the circle.
He's like saying, oh, look, there could be, basically a boy on girl. There could be, brown on black. And it's like he's describing all the different fights going on. But it's not like there's 3 fights going on. So basically, the characters, you have to think, said this, waited for that fight to end, new fight to start. Then there's this kind, wait for this fight to end.
And then like in the third act, they bring in the Mortal Kombat X-ray.
Oh
battle.
my god! See, that's part of the whole. Okay, we got to cover the story of this. The next part is the style of this movie. There was a point in this movie. It was the last fight's the only time it happened, right?
Yeah.
During the tournament.
During the tournament, yeah.
We've seen
prior to this.
We've seen several martial arts fights before this.
Yeah.
So mixed martial arts before this. And then in the scene, all of a sudden, one time, somebody gets punched in the ribs, and they go to that X-ray cam where you can kind of just see a flash of like the bones cracking and everything. And I'm like, wait a minute, Sean, did I just see? And he's like, yeah. Yep. And sure enough, they only did like twice more, but like twice more in the movie.
They did the initial, because it's Jake's, the main character, he gets punched in the ribs in the fight before the last fight to show, oh, his ribs are probably broken. And then when they go into the final fight where he's fighting Ryan and every time Ryan's hitting them there, they keep going like like showing that he's getting fucked up because his ribs are basically
is fine in a video game, but in this movie, even in a Mortal Kombat movie, I could almost let it slide. But in this,
it's one thing if they show that at the beginning of the movie and it's been like that throughout, but they haven't. They waited till the last like 15 minutes to all of a sudden just start doing this.
All of a sudden do that, yeah. And it's like, and you could have very well just heard a crack of his rib, and then you see him, and you can kind of, you're not idiots. Don't pretend your viewers are idiots. Give them the benefit of the doubt. They can figure out, oh, he must have broke a rib or something, and that's where the guy keeps punching him, hurts him, yeah. But no, they had to do this X-ray cam thing. But that was just part of the larger problem of like this trying to make this extreme style. Because the other one being,
before I know where you're gonna go with, I'm not going there yet. Okay. Then there was also before that. Every time they brought up Jake's dead dad, and he would like there'd be like a flash happen on screen, like they're gonna flashback. No, that's basically Jake going Incredible Hulk mode. Like it's like a flip switches, and they do like this like quick flash of the screen, like, oh, I thought they were going flashback.
They did that. They also did that kind of like at random points, like during a fight or something. There'd be like a kind of a flash where I guess it's supposed to, and not even a sound effect where it almost sounds like somebody's like taking a photograph or something, but they don't. It's just like a weird edit,
former flash kind of thing. Yeah. And then you got Evan Peters' character is just this weird. He's a super fan. He's basically a weird super fan kid who videotapes everything. And Brian got such a kick out of all the web addresses in this.
Oh my gosh.
Fightsforreal.com. Like
realfightsforreal.com. That's a great name for a
just like all the recordings and stuff. And like what was it like when they're at the party, like there's these two girls like making out in a hot tub, and like Evan Peters, and like they're in front of a crowd.
There's two girls who are topless, and there's bubbles, but
it's like a foam like hot tub.
But there's two girls in the middle of a party with an audience just making out in a tub. Then one guy breaks out a camera like, "Ew, you're disgusting." What? I'm like, dude.
Yeah, Evan Peters walks by with a camera going.
That's where you draw the line. Okay.
Like, oh, screw this. Let's like some of the motivations, and like was it Amber Heard's character? Was it Baha? Is her name?
Yeah, her name is Baha Miller.
Her name's Baha. Like she comes up, like she basically tricks Jake into coming to this party to fight, and then like later she tries to apologize, and she's like, "Well, you did the fight." I'm like, "No, he tried to leave. Like
you wanted to fight, you just didn't want to lose. Like no, he tried to leave several times.
He tried to leave 5 times, and y'all wouldn't let him. Like you surrounded him, you blocked his exit, and then you basically finally had to goad him into it. And it's like, get up, shut. And then she flips it on him like he's the jerk, and then he has to apologize later.
And he apologizes, and she starts making out with him, and Elsie's like, "Ooh, apologies are nice." And so he's going to be whipped the rest of his life. She's who's in charge in that relationship.
Exactly. Which I mean, Amber Heard. I mean, say what you will about her currently, right now. I mean, she looks great in the movie, and I think she looks great in Aquaman. But still, it's like, okay. And then they try to like, was it like when she tried to stage the breakup with Ryan? Like he's horrible to her and all this, and like throughout the movie, like. He hasn't been bad to her at all.
Really, yeah. Later in the movie, you see him get a little grab with her and stuff. But it's like
her arm after she breaks up with him in front of everybody.
But earlier, it's like he's a jerk. But he had, as far as we go, had done nothing to her except. Yeah.
She's popular. He's popular. Like they're the two popular kids. But like you never ever see him be a jerk to her or treat her badly.
Doesn't even like mouth off to her or anything up till that point.
Till like there's at one point where it's like they're hanging out and like everyone's like congratulating him and she just looks like oh, poor you. Poor you. But it's like once again, it's like it's stuff in the story that you're not showing. So it's like it doesn't make sense. Like then you have the whole story arc with the mom and the brother who's a tennis player that doesn't matter diddly squat to the character film. But the main problem is the soundtrack of this movie.
Oh my god!
The soundtrack of this movie is.
There's two problems with the soundtrack. One, the songs themselves are just obnoxious.
There's two good songs.
There are a couple good ones. It's like this, this early 2000s, well, I guess mid 2000s at this point, rock, and it was just like constant, like every scene, like not like in a club scene or even in the fight scenes, it might work, but like every single time they went to a new scene, they're like, this rock music blaring.
Let me describe to you how this movie was filmed for everyone who has not seen this film. I am the guy who controls the sound volume. Here's the dial. Brian, cue music. Dialogue. Dialogue stops for 2 seconds.
That was the second. Yeah, the one problem was the songs themselves. The second problem was the volume of it, because it would blaring to the point where I was like, I had to turn down my speakers. But then as soon as someone starts talking, they dim it again. And as soon as they're done talking, turn it back up. It's like,
and it's not like okay, here's the introduction to a scene. They're at a party, the music's playing loud. They start talking, and then the music goes to the background, and it stays that way. It's music's blaring. You and I say 2 sentences to each other, and then I walk away from you. Back to blaring. I go to the next person, turns down, starts talking. I leave that person, blaring again. And it's just like
it happens so often. We're watching the movie, and every time we both went.
They're basically doing this, like, turn it down. And then, like you were saying, the one moment that there's an actual emotional, dramatic scene, like, they don't, like you need to let it breathe for, like, 10 more seconds. And instead, here comes Kanye West's Stronger. And it's like, it's a good song, but they really shouldn't have started it for, like, another 10 seconds later. I was like,
it actually fit the next scene.
Yeah,
but they started it at the end of the previous scene, which it totally did not fit at all.
Really, Yaman Hansu's got, he's like got tears in his eyes. He's got an emotional moment, and it's ending that scene. And instead of letting that scene breathe, because it's actually a really good scene, they're like, "You can't kill me, makes me feel stronger." And it's like, and now it's like him doing the whole like pumping himself up before the big fight. I was like, you really should have just let this breathe and not done. And it's like, well, you just ruined that scene. Like whatever they just accomplished, you just ruined it. And they had 2 sequels to this franchise. But
granted, they were straight to video sequels, but still
they were, and they actually, and none of the, except for Evan Peters, none of the original cast came back, and they actually brought MMA fighters, real MMA fighters, into this. But I mean, and 3 years later, we ended up getting Warrior, so it's fine, and Warrior is 1,000 times better. But even though we had butchered this film for like 20 straight minutes, it's not the worst. It's not the worst. It's just there's a lot of lazy. Like, this movie could have actually been good. It could have.
That's why I held out. I'm like, I know you wanted to pick it for Stinker, and I'm cool with it, but I'm warning you, I might like it. But
Yeah, it has the potential to have been good if maybe. And I was like, maybe it's just the director's first directing debut. And then you went through his portfolio. Like, no, that's just a shitty director.
Hey, I like Kick-Ass too. I'm a defender of that. But anyway,
you're what?
I like Kick-Ass 2, so I'm going to give him credit for that one.
Kick-Ass 2 is...
Of course, he also did Fantasy Island and Truth or Dare, so...
Yeah, no, both of those are awful. Kick-Ass 2 is okay, but compared to the first film, it's trash. But, yeah, Never Back Down, it's... Is it on anything?
No.
No, it's not on anything.
Of course not. It's what we're
not saying. Yeah, of course, because we always pick movies that are not on any streaming services. But, yeah, Never Back Down, it's not the worst stinker that we've had to talk about. It's just lazily attempted. They could have done something with it. They could have made it something big. Because, I mean, MMA was huge in 2008. I mean, it's still big now. But that was, like, the height of, like, its craziness, like Ultimate Fighter and UFC. And which basically that's what it kind of felt like. It's like, look, we gotta get this thing out. Like UFC and MMA is huge right now. Let's rush it out. And teenagers are our demographics. We'll make it around teenagers and stuff like this, which they're all like 26-something-year-old kids or adults when they make this film. It was a failed attempt to try to push something that could, if they had put it in the right hands and had basically looked like they gave a shit about it, it could actually have turned into something actually very profitable and spawn sequels and stuff like that. But instead, it's just one of those. It's like, you guys remember that movie? That movie sucked, right? But that is our episode. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Weekend Crusaders. If you guys did, go and hit that like, share, and subscribe button to the channel so you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos that pop up on the Movie Crusaders. I don't think there's really any movies that come out this week. I don't recall. I know next week we've got Snyder Cut, which some people already got to watch some of it because of HBO Max yesterday.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't. Oh no, Cherry comes out this week.
Oh.
So yeah, I'll be check out for a review of that. I did not see Chaos Walking. I don't think Brian, you saw it either, did you?
No, I'm planning on seeing it, but I haven't gotten to it yet.
Yeah, so I don't know when a review of that will pop up, if ever. But yeah, I think Cherry might be the only movie that comes out this week. But next week, we've got. Actually, you know what? I actually like the list for next week. I think we got a I would say a current day horror classic I think it's very well loved by a lot of people for current horror films. And we have shit on this director before, but we actually like this this directorial film. We got a comedy, a 2010 comedy.
I want to say early 2000s.
2000s. We got a 2000s comedy that I personally love. We've got a Brian's Pick, which is a movie, once again, that I have not seen, that's got a particular kind of appetite to it. So we'll see what I think of that. We got, in my opinion, one of my favorite 90s comedies ever in my eyes. And then we've got a stinker that I love the franchise, but
and I haven't seen this one again, so we'll see.
This movie killed the franchise. I love the franchise, but this one effectively killed it. And I actually had to watch this last week, and it is god awful. It really is. I can't even defend it. That's how bad it is. But those are our movies. So be on the lookout for those next week. I am Sean Wasserkrug. That is Brian Michaels. We are the Movie Crusaders. This is another episode, 10 in the bag of the Weekend Crusaders. We hope you guys have been enjoying these episodes as much as we have liked filming them. And until next time, in case we don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Movie Crusaders.
You're still here? It's over. Go home.